So you've inherited a mobile home. Hey, it's Brad from probateresource.com. Thanks for checking out this video. So Probate Resource is a real estate solutions company. We're based in Metro Atlanta, but we actually buy houses outside of the Atlanta area as well. And we specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. So we actually have a pretty extensive amount of experience in dealing with mobile homes or manufactured homes. And I wanted to do a few videos about this today. So this particular video is, if you've inherited a mobile home, what do you do? Well, number one, if you've inherited a mobile home, is this on a piece of land or is it in a park? Okay, so usually if a mobile home is in a park, you're paying lot rent to the owner of the park. So you need to ask yourself, hey, do I want to keep paying lot rent to the owner of this park, or do I want to move the mobile home somewhere else? Well, guess what? It's pretty expensive to move a mobile home. I mean, nowadays it's $8,000 to $10,000 to move a mobile home, and then you got to figure out where you're going to put it, right? So do you want to move the mobile home? Only you can answer that question. Again, like I said, it's probably $8,000 to $10,000, could be more depending on how far you're moving it. There's other complications. Could be 15 grand to move this place. Is it worth it to move? A lot of times it's not actually worth it to move, especially if it's in a park, it's not attached to land, and if it's an older mobile home, it can be cost prohibitive to do that. So in many cases, what happens is you're really better off selling that mobile home. And now I'm going to tell you something, and you're probably not going to like what I'm going to tell you, but you need to read the lease agreement that you signed with the mobile home park, because in a lot of cases, let's say you inherit this mobile home. In many cases, you are not allowed to rent your mobile home. You remember, you own that mobile home. You are not allowed to rent that mobile home out to someone else. That's crazy, isn't it? Because basically what that means is that the park is only allowed to rent that out to or the park has to give you permission to do that. And a lot of the parks will not allow that. Why do the parks not allow that? Well, basically they're sort of shoving you into a corner, and you're saying, well, crap, I don't have $10,000 to move this mobile home. I'm not allowed to rent it to someone else. I don't want to move into it because I already have a house of my own. What do I do? Well, that leaves you no choice but to basically just sell that mobile home to the park. And the park will buy the mobile home from you, and then now it becomes a park-owned home. Well, what's going to happen if you only have one buyer that can buy that mobile home from you? Well, more than likely, they're probably not going to offer you as much money as if you had more options. Because more times than not, we'll get someone to reach out to us, and they'll say, hey, I've got this mobile home in a park. Will you buy it from me? And if I can't rent that mobile home out to someone else, then it's no good to me, because I'm not going to go live in it. I already have my own house that I live in. I'm not going to go live in this mobile home. So basically the rules of the park basically only allow owner occupants that like actually own the unit to live in it, or sometimes family members and that sort of thing. Now there's a little bit of a way around that, and you need to check the rules of the park, but sometimes you may be able to owner finance the mobile home to someone else, in which case they are the owner on title to the property, and in which case they could live in it and they're still making you payments. But again, there's a little bit of a gray area. I'm not going to get into that in this video. Now let's go to the other side. Is this mobile home on land? We love mobile manufactured homes on land. I actually own, how many do I own right now? I own a few of them, and I'm actually buying another one this week. I like them because it's affordable housing. Right now, real estate prices are going crazy. Manufactured homes on land are basically one of the ways that you can get affordable housing for individuals. And if you can get that mobile home or that manufactured home financeable, where they can get like an FHA or a VA mortgage on it, and there's some steps to do that, that makes it worth even more money on the market, because then someone could go get a mortgage and actually buy it from you on a mortgage. But there's some more hoops you have to jump through with those compared to just like a normal sticks and bricks house. If it is on land and you've inherited this mobile home, the first thing you need to check was, is the title to this mobile home retired? Okay. 9 times out of 10, most people do not retire the title. And this is going to cause you complications when you go to sell this property. because if the title is not retired, the mobile home and the piece of land are treated as two separate things. The mobile home is considered personal property and the land is considered real property. And until you retire the title and you attach that mobile home or that manufactured home to the land, it is considered a personal property. So there's going to be a title or a tag for the home. It's just like a car almost. And then there is the title or the deed to the land, and they're not necessarily always one and the same. So you're going to want to check, and you can usually call your local county tag office and say, hey, I've inherited this property. Here's the address. You can even go look at, if you go look up the tax records. Now, this doesn't always tell you, because sometimes if you filed homestead exemption, you're going to get one tax bill rather than two separate tax bills. But if you search the address in the local county tax assessor's website and you get two different tax bills, a lot of times you're going to have one tax bill for the mobile home and one tax bill for the land. If you see two there, more than likely that title is not retired, and in which case it probably would be a good idea for you to retire the title. Now, if you're going to immediately try to sell that property, that's going to come up in the title review process of selling it. Now, the attorney can retire the title for you at closing as part of the closing process, or you can try to do it beforehand. It takes about, in Georgia, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to go through that process. Or you can, sometimes if the end buyer has a lender, they may allow a grace period of like 90 days to retire those titles post-closing. But you're going to want to check to see if they're retired. And if they are not retired, you're going to have to go through that process of retiring the titles, where you basically surrender the titles. Well, now, Brad, nobody knows where the titles are. Well, that's a common issue, right? And you're going to have to figure out, A, is that title to the mobile home even in the decedent's name, the person we're talking about probate and inheritance here. Is that person, like, was it ever in their name at all? Because we've seen where the land has been transferred, but the mobile home was never transferred, or the mobile home title is still in like two people ago's name. And now we have to go unwind this whole process. So you need to make sure that you're checking to see if, you know, whose title is it in. If you do have the titles to the mobile home, that's awesome. Like, you're in a rare circumstance, because in our experience, most of the time these families do not have copies of these titles in their paperwork stack. And in which case, if you do have a copy of the title, you just sign the back of it, just like you do, like if you're selling a car, you sign the back of the title, and then you give that title and do a bill of sale. So if you're in Georgia, really, you can go online and download a bill of sale document. Also, if it's a double wide, there's typically two titles. There's a side A and a side B, because they bring them in two separate units and then they put them together. So you're actually going to have two different titles. You have one for side A, one for side B. Occasionally, I've seen it where there's one title and it has like sort of two different VINs, side A and side B on it. But in many cases, there's two different titles. You're going to have to sign those over to the new person. And when you go to retire them, basically what you're doing when you retire the title is you're going, hey, you know, I'm going to talk about state of Georgia here because this is where I live. Hey, state of Georgia, we want to retire these titles. There's a form you fill out. It's called a T-234 form here in Georgia. You fill out this form. You say, hey, I'm the owner of this property, or maybe you inherited it and you're the representative of the estate. You can just sign on behalf of the estate once you have your probate letters. You can sign on behalf of the estate and say, hey, we want to retire these titles. You basically are surrendering the titles to the state. The local county is going to send out a sheriff or a marshal out to the house to inspect the property. All they're looking for is they're going to look for the VIN numbers. They're going to verify the VIN numbers of the unit. Usually the VIN numbers are like on a placard inside the kitchen cabinet. Sometimes they're like on a laundry room cabinet on the back of a door. And in many cases, they're also on the frame of the unit. So if you have a single wide, there's going to be one VIN. If you have a double wide, there's two VINs. They're going to verify that, yes, the VINs on these titles do in fact match what is here. And they're also going to look and say, hey, is this movable? The axles have to be removed. The tongue where they attach the hitch to needs to be removed. And if the axles have been removed and the tongue's been removed and it's sitting on a permanent foundation, now it doesn't have to have a perimeter foundation. It can have like concrete piers and skirting, but that foundation has to be sort of, if you're going to try to finance it, needs to be approved, and you got to get an engineer to certify that. But they're going to verify, can this basically be movable easily? And if they say no, then they'll allow the titles to be retired. And at that point, you're essentially surrendering the titles to the state of Georgia. They're disposing of them, marking them as retired. And in which case, going forward, the local county tax assessor is going to tax you with one tax bill, just like if you had a sticks and bricks house. If you had a sticks and bricks house, you're going to have the land, and then you have an improvement on the land. Typically, the improvement is your house if you have a sticks and bricks house. So in this case, with the mobile or manufactured home, the improvement on the land that's attached to it is going to be the mobile home or the manufactured home. That's the improvement on the land, and they're going to tax you with one tax bill. So if you've inherited a mobile home, these are the steps that you need to take. Also, let's say you want to sell it. What's this place worth? Well, if this place is financeable, it's worth way more money because you can go get a mortgage on it and someone could buy it for you. If it's not financeable, like the titles aren't retired, it's not on a permanent foundation, that sort of thing, it's basically considered personal property, in which case it's also a depreciating asset. And depending on the condition of this mobile home, they can deteriorate pretty quickly if you don't take care of them, especially some of these older units. Some of the newer stuff built in the last, probably I'd say decade to 20 years, are actually pretty decently built compared to the older stuff. But they can deteriorate pretty quickly, and in which case we've found there are some instances where we go to look at it and we say, look, this isn't even worth it. I just need to scrape this thing off the site. I need to demolish it, dispose of it, and bring a new one in. Also, as I make this video, just last week, just in the past week, Governor Kemp in Georgia has signed a bill into law that prohibits local municipalities from essentially creating zoning regulations. Now, I'm going to talk about mobile homes here, but it's actually a little bit broader than what I'm talking about here. It prohibits local municipalities from creating zoning rules that essentially keep someone from putting a mobile home on a piece of property if there's already a mobile home there. Some of the local municipalities here in the Atlanta area have essentially, by coming up with creative rules, have basically made it where you can't put another mobile home back on that piece of property. Some of them grandfather that in, so if there was a mobile home there and you tore it down, you can put the same one back there. So for instance, if there was a 2-bedroom single wide on this property, you could replace that with a brand new 2-bedroom single wide again, but you couldn't put anything bigger. So go take a look at this law that was signed into effect by Governor Kemp, but it essentially outlaws municipalities from doing that. And why did they do that? Well, that creates affordable housing, and we need more affordable housing in this country. We have a lack of it. So I know this video is intense. I know there was a lot of information, but there's a lot to cover here. So I hope this helps somebody out. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out. If you have a property you want to sell, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you about buying the property. Again, I am Brad from probateresource.com, and I hope you have a great day. Again, if you want to talk to us, you can click on the link below. It'll take you to our website. You can either pick up the phone and call us, or you can fill out the form on our website, and we'll be in touch with you ASAP. Thanks again for your time. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.